WA2 paper. We'll take a look at section A first, the MCQ questions, followed by section B, where we will go through everything less comprehension. Come, let's start by looking at some grammar questions first. Look at question 1. It's been livelier around the house since we adopted the puppy, dash it. So for question 1 here, we are looking at what we call a question tag kind of question. And the first thing that we need to do when we encounter such a question is to identify whether the positive or negative connotation has been used in the question. So for this case, the keyword is it's. It can either mean it is or it has. Next, we need to see what is the verb that follows after it. For this case, it's been. So been here is in the past participle form. Okay, as such, it needs to be paired with it has been. Okay, so has been is positive. We need the negative connotation at the back, which would be hasn't it. So it's number 3. This is pretty straightforward, I would say. Now look at number 2. If you dash the instruction manual closely, it would not have taken you that long to assemble the cabinet. So this question here is testing you on tenses. Now, it would not have taken you. Would here is past tense. Now we observe that this following of instruction must take place first. So I will say this is action number 1, followed by number 2, the would not have taken you. So in that case, we are looking at 2 actions that took place in the past, right? So it will be the following must take place in the past perfect form, past perfect tense, right? So if we look at the options, our answer would be number 3, had followed, because this is past perfect, which means one action occurred before second action took place. Now let's take a look at the other options quickly so that we can learn. Follow here, quite straightforward, present tense plural. Follow is past tense. Were following, this is what we call past continuous tense. Essentially, my action was continuing sometime in the past. Now moving on, let's take a look at number 3. Playing board games dash Hakimi's favorite pastime ever since he received his first one as a gift. So question 3 over here, I would say it's a tenses question once again. Now the first thing that we observe for question 3 is playing board games. So we need to ask ourselves, is it the act of playing or is it the board games? Now if we observe Hakimi's pastime, it cannot be the board games. The board games is just an object. What do you like to do during your pastime? Here needs to be an action. Therefore, the action is the act of playing. And we can see that there's only one action here. Therefore, the blank needs to be in the singular form. Secondly, we observe that Hakimi has been playing board games since he received his first one as a gift. So it means that the action started in the past and it's still continuing now. Okay, so in that case, it will not be number 1 and number 2 because these two are in present tense only. It needs to be present perfect tense, right? Because it shows that my action took place in the past and is continuing sometime now. Okay, so singular, so I'll look at number 3. Playing board games has been Hakimi's favorite pastime. Okay, now moving on, look at number 4. All the furniture in Anya's house that sold last month as she'll be migrating to Canada with her family. So this question is a subject-verb agreement question. The first thing we observe is furniture. Furniture here is known as a collective noun. Therefore, we will look at it as a singular subject. Next, we observe that the action took place last month, which is in the past tense. So singular and past tense means our answer will be number 3. Okay, let's move on to number 4. Before I move on, I just like to point out a few things. Okay, equipment and luggage. Okay, all these fall under the same category as collective nouns. So I can say all the equipment is new. All the luggage has been brought by father. So I need to consider them as singular subject as well. However, if I say 2 pieces of luggage dash stolen by the thief, in this case, it's clearly stated 2. So this is plural. Then it will be were stolen. Can you see? There is a difference between collective nouns and also when it is in the plural form, where you specifically tell me how many pieces were used. Okay, I hope this is clear for everybody so far. It's slightly tricky, but usually we'll encounter more of these interesting questions in our prelim papers. Okay, this is a WA2 paper, so the difficulty level is slightly lower. Okay, for those of our friends who are joining us, if you have a booklet to actually take note of all these important information, I highly encourage you to just jot it down quickly. Okay. Now moving on, let's take a look at number 5. Jake was confident about his essay that he completed with no difficulty. Thus, he should still check through his work before submission. So this question here is testing you on conjunctions. Conjunctions are basically your linking words that connect different pieces of information together. In this question, we see 2 pieces of information. Firstly, he was confident. That means probably Jake knew that he would do well in the essay. Maybe because he has written it before, maybe he has done his research, done his homework. Now, the second piece of information shows that he needs to check through his work before submission. Okay, so let's take a look at the options given to us. First is hence. Hence here is used to show cause-effect relationship. Besides here is used to show additional information. Therefore, is used to show cause-effect again. While nonetheless here means in spite of what is being said. In other words, I also can say and use the word regardless. Okay, that means I'm not um, taking into consideration the other factors. So in this case here, the answer will be number 4. Because I don't take into consideration the fact that Jake was confident about his essay. So this is not considered. Okay. Now moving on, let's take a look at number 6. She was still denial about her favorite basketball team losing the championship. So this question here is testing you on prepositions. Now we can see over here is a phrase denial. And you can see that there is a fact that accompanies the phrase. So we are saying that the girl refuses just to accept the fact. So for this case here, it's very straightforward. That means we don't have alternative answers. The answer is just in denial, number 1. Because this is what we call collocation. That means when you talk and when you write, there are certain fixed phrases that you can't change. Okay? And this is just one of them. Now let's take a look at what these prepositions really mean and how do we use them outside this sentence. In here shows a position. In the classroom, in the house, in the kitchen. At here shows a location. I am at XYZ primary school now, right? For example. On here shows a surface of object. Please place the book on the table. With here shows something that is complementary or there's something is together. Please go to the clinic with me. So 2 of you are doing the same activity. Okay. Now moving on to question 7. Despite having studied diligently for the test, Deepika had confidence that she would do well in it the moment she saw the questions. This is a very straightforward determiner kind of question. So what are determiner? Determiners are basically words that show quantity. So looking back at the question, I need to identify some clues that will help me determine whether the quantity is high or low. The first clue is despite, because it shows some kind of contrast. Next, we observe that Deepika studied diligently for the test. So it suggests that she probably could do well. But no, you can see that there's a contrast between the expectation here as well as the reality the moment she saw the questions. So probably the questions were very difficult, and even though Deepika could have studied for it, she wasn't able to answer the questions well. Therefore, the quantity here would be very low. Next, we need to ask ourselves, is confidence countable or uncountable? Well, this is uncountable. So I have my clues already. Uncountable, low quantity. So let's take a look at my options. The first one, little here, is low quantity, uncountable. Then we have less here. Less here is a comparative word. So there needs to be some kind of comparison between different quantities. For example, I can say, please add lesser sugar. So I try to compare the expectation that I want versus something that happened in the past. Maybe someone else's cup of coffee. More here is also a comparative word, while much is of high quantity and uncountable. Okay, so in this case here, when we look at low quantity and uncountable, our answer will be number 1. So Deepika had little confidence. Now moving on, look at question 8. The perfume that Mr. Kim wanted, including those that he had planned to get as gifts, dashed off the shelves yesterday. So this is a very straightforward subject-verb agreement question. There are two things that we need to take note. Firstly, yesterday they were removed off the shelf, so it's in the past tense. Secondly, the perfume. Perfume here is a singular subject. So singular and past tense, my answer will be number 3, was taken off the shelves. Okay. Now, you can see that there is an additional piece of information here, including those he had planned to get as gifts. So we will not consider this because it's additional. And you notice that there are commas. So this is basically telling you that we can ignore this when getting our answer. Okay. I wouldn't say this is a very challenging grammar section so far. Just that I hope everybody can be careful. You need to identify your clues properly to prevent careless mistakes. Now look at number 9. Dash you decide to sleep in. I'll see you at the cafe for breakfast tomorrow. So you can see that for question 9, there is a criteria here as well as the outcome. So we are trying to say that if this criteria is not fulfilled, then you will see the person at the cafe the following day. Okay, so in this case here, we would say unless you decide to sleep in. Okay? Because unless here is used to show a specific criteria being used. Now let's take a look at the other options quickly to learn when to use them. The first one is if. So the word if here is used to show a hypothetical situation. If I had $1 million, I would donate it to the poor. Right, so that means I don't have it now, but I'm saying that if one day that happened, you will do something. Lest, L-E-S-T, this means that you want to prevent something from happening. For example, keep the phone in your pocket lest someone snatches it from you. So you want to prevent something that is unpleasant from happening to you. Okay, and we also have the word since. Since is quite straightforward. It's just to show from the time in the past till the time under consideration. Okay. Now look at question 10. Honey's brother brimmed with pride as he watched her dash her art piece to an international crowd at the annual exhibition. Now this is talking about, this is testing you on the tenses once again. Now we observe a few things. Watch, her, and the other blank. So you can see that this is verb number 1 and the blank is verb number 2. And we have a pronoun separating these two verbs. So a pronoun here is basically a word used to replace the noun. So the her here could refer to Honey herself, right? So in this case, when you have a verb noun verb kind of rule, we need to apply what we call the bare infinitive rule. As such, it means that my second verb here needs to be in present tense and plural. In other words, the base form. Okay. So in this case here, it will be watch her present her art piece. Okay, the answer will be number 1. Now let's quickly look at the other options to learn when to use them. Presents with the S. This is present tense and singular. Presented is in past tense. And having presented, this is what we call a perfect participle form. We use this to show that one action was completed before another. Okay. And with that, we have come to the end of this first part of our grammar. I'll just leave this here for a bit for everyone to take in the information. If you have any questions, do feel free to ask me in the chat. All right. If there are no further questions, let's move on further. We're going to look at some vocabulary questions now. Okay. So let's take a look at number 11. The twins were dashed by the magnificent fireworks going off above the majestic castle. So for this question here, there are a few keywords that we need to consider. Firstly, magnificent fireworks, which means that the sight must be very beautiful. They must have been awed. Okay, I'm just sharing with you my thought process. Now, yeah, look at the options. Let's take a look at the options now. The first one here we have is appalled, which means that you are horrified. You're like very shocked like that. You may be appalled maybe when you read about animal abuse cases, you know, like how would somebody treat the cat in a certain way. Next is the word mortified, which means that you feel either embarrassed or ashamed. Okay. Usually this refers to someone who is feeling very uncomfortable. Infuriated. This means that you make someone very angry or impatient. While enthralled means that you are very fascinated by something. Okay. So in this case here, our answer would be number 4, because the fireworks were very beautiful. Now moving on, let's take a look at number 12. We had no dash of transport to get to the nearest convenience store after the only vehicle we had ran out of fuel. So over here, we're looking at transport and the methods of going somewhere. Okay. And we're saying how the vehicle, the car or the van here is one of the methods. Alright. So let's take a look at the options very quickly. The first one is route. So route here means to get from the start point to destination. Next one is means. Means here means that it's a method or a way of doing something. Now, we have system. So system is basically a set of things working together. As part of a network. While method here means that it's a particular way of doing something. Okay. So for this case here, we are looking at transport as one of the methods of going somewhere. Okay, so it's just not just one, just we're not just looking at a way of something, we're looking at how you do something to achieve something else. All right. So in this case, it will always be the means of transport, because this method, it will help you achieve something. Okay, but for method number 4, it's just one particular way of doing something. There is no idea, it doesn't convey the idea that, you know, you're going to achieve something out of your actions. Now let's take a look at number 13. Outside a stadium, a group of tourists got caught in a violent dash between two large groups of supporters of rival football teams. Now, some keywords that we need to take note include violent, which means that, you know, there's probably some fight. Secondly, we look at how there are large groups. That means it's team group A versus group B, and many people are fighting against one another. And we also can see that they are rival football teams, so there may be some kind of hate. Maybe team A lost the match, then people from team B, you know, laugh at them, and probably this might have caused people in team A to be angry and start a fight. Now, if we were to look closely at the options, the first one we have is raid. So this refers to an sudden attack or assault. So usually we talk about how the police will raid, for example, the criminal den, right? You want to suddenly appear and arrest those criminals. Brawl. Brawl here is referring to a noisy fight. Then we also have debate. Debate here refers to some kind of formal discussion or meeting. And squabble refers to quarrel over something trivial. That means we're looking at something that is very insignificant, then people are trying to fight over it. But in this case here, when we talk about rival football teams with hate, you know, and things like that, it's something very serious. So you cannot consider it trivial. So in this case here, the answer will be number 2, brawl. Okay. Now moving on, look at number 14. The thrilling yet challenging adventure camp dashed a positive change in his attitude and behavior towards facing difficulties. So we are looking at how this adventure camp has caused something else to happen. What is it that happened? This positive change in attitude. Okay, that means he became probably more determined, more has greater perseverance, things like that. Now let's take a look closely at the different phrasal verbs that are tested. When you bring in or brought in, it means that you introduce something new. So usually it will say that you bring in, for example, a new kind of drinks, maybe a new kind of Coca-Cola or something. Or you bring in a new law. It's something that people have never seen before, never heard before. Now you have brought up, bring up, or brought up, right? It means that you look after a child until he or she is an adult. Next, brought about means you cause something to happen. And bring or brought around means to persuade somebody to have the same opinion as you. Okay, so in this case here, when we cause something to happen, it means that it brought about, okay, because of the word cause. Now let's take a look at number 15. After a grueling day of school, tuition, classes, and training, Lionel dashed into his chair and fell asleep. So we are looking at how this boy has a very busy day. And because of that, he is very tired. Right? The fell asleep here suggests he is very tired. Now let's take a look at the options. The first one is lurched. Lurch means something is very unsteady in the movement. We have pranced, which means you walk in an energetic way. We have frolicked, which means you play in a lively or cheerful way. Then you have slump. So slump here means that you lean heavily or sit heavily on something. And usually you put all your weight on that particular thing because you are very tired, you don't have any strength, right? And this is what the clues tell me. So the answer would be number 4, slump. Okay. I'll just give everyone some time to take in the information here before we move on to our next section. Okay. And if you have any questions, do feel free to ask me. Okay. Okay. Moving on, let's take a look at our vocabulary close now. So what will happen is as follows. I'll read through the text with you and we'll understand the words that are underlined. Thereafter, we will choose the correct option. Okay. So let's take a look at this text. For the current generation, Gen Z, the social media platform TikTok is becoming their search engine of choice that customizes the video results they see based on their interaction with content. So the word customizes here basically means you modify something to suit the particular task or individual. Okay. What has drawn Gen Z to it is that real people, rather than faceless websites, are synthesizing and delivering information on the application. So synthesizing here means you mix different ideas to make something new. Okay, and delivering information on the application. On TikTok, you see how a customer genuinely feels after an eatery, about an eatery through a bite-sized clip instead of having to read a lengthy review. So genuinely here means you are looking at how somebody is very sincere or truthful. Yeah. So essentially, we're looking at how somebody is sharing his or her real feelings. Now, review here basically refers to writing about someone's opinion. Can be through a book, a firm, etc. Okay. More young people are using TikTok not only to look for products and businesses, but also to look for tutorials and find explanations for things they come across. So come across here means that you meet or find somebody by chance. Okay. Now, with this in mind, let's take a look at the options and choose the most appropriate one. So for question 60, when you customize something, it means you modify it to get a particular, to suit a particular individual or a task. All right. So let's take a look at the options. The first one is curate. Curate means that you select things to form a collection. So usually it could be like different musical pieces you select to form the album or documents, things like that. Okay. Next is changes. So changes here refer to you're trying to alter or modify something. Next, we have specializers. So the specializers here refer to how you become an expert in a particular subject. While personalizers means that you produce something that meets individual requirements. Okay. So in this case here, when we look back at a question that talks about customizers, that means you are doing something to meet the needs of a particular person. The closest answer that we have would be number 4, because of this idea that something is done at an individual level. Okay. Now moving forward, let's take a look at number 17, which talks about how different websites people are synthesizing and delivering information on applications like TikTok. So this idea of synthesizing is mixing different ideas together. So let's take a look at the options given. The first one is producing, which means that you're trying to make or manufacture raw materials. Next, we have the word combining, which means that you join something together to form a single thing. Then we have shortening, which means you make something shorter. It's quite self-explanatory. And summarizing. So you are trying to make a brief statement of the main points. Okay, so in this case here, when we look at how you are trying to synthesize things together, the closest answer will be to combine them, to join things together. Okay. Moving on, let's take a look at number 18. When you see how a customer genuinely feels, it means that someone is very sincere, someone who is very truthful. So looking at the options given, the first one is actually, which suggests a fact is unexpected. Okay. Next, we have the word strongly, which suggests great strength or power. Candidly means that you are honest and straightforward. While legitimately means that in a way that conforms to law or rule. Okay? So in this case here, when we look at how someone is genuine or truthful, the closest answer we have is someone who is very candid because of this idea of being honest. Okay? Now moving on, let's take a look at number 19. When we look at how you're writing reviews, so these reviews refer to, sharing your opinions, your thoughts on things. So if we look at the options, the first one is study. So the word study here refers to how you devote time and attention to gain knowledge. And usually this refers to something of academic nature. Next, you have the word profile, which is basically a short article describing some person or organization. Thirdly, you have the word critique, which means that you evaluate something in a very analytical way. And lastly, memoir refers to a biography written by someone with personal knowledge. Okay? So in this case here, when we look at how someone is writing a review, the closest answer we have would be to critique. Because of this idea that you're trying to evaluate, you're trying to give your opinions regarding a particular issue. Now, the last word that we are looking at is come across, which means that you meet or find somebody by chance. So looking at my options, the first one is unearth, which means that you find something by digging. Next, you have uncover. So uncover here means you discover something that is a secret. Thirdly, we have the word confront, which means that you come face to face with somebody with a hostile intent. Okay. And lastly, when you encounter someone, it means that you are faced with a difficult problem unexpectedly. Okay. So in this case, when we come across something, it means that you encounter, you face something. All right. And the answer here will be number 4. And with that, we've come to the end of this segment of our paper so far. I'll just leave this here for a bit. So if you'd like me to zoom in or re-explain certain questions, do sound out. All right. Moving on, let's take a look at our grammar clause now. Okay. The outback is a name used by the natives for the vast, unpopulated, and mainly arid areas that comprise Australia's interior and remote coast. The drive from Alice Spring Ayr Rocks is an absolute must-do, taking travelers through the heart of the country. So you can see this is a particular destination. So the people need to drive from one place until they reach the destination. So the preposition that we will use is to. Okay. At 348 meters, the rock is the height dash a 95-story building. So you can see the height, and they're trying to describe the height to you. It's here. You're trying to show the relationship between two objects, right? The rock's height together with the building. They're trying to compare. So the word they will use, the preposition used will be of. Ayers Rock is just any ordinary tourist attraction. It is special to the Anangu people. Okay, so you can see that it's special. We suggest that is over here. The ordinary is not ordinary. Okay, so you just look at the clues in the text to give you the answer. So the answer is L, not. Dash Aboriginal or Australian tribe. So you can see that over here, A is a vowel. So it will be an Aboriginal Australian tribe. Okay. Their beliefs and culture dash not known to many outsiders. So over here you can see beliefs and culture. This is plural. So it will be are not known. Okay. It is important to appreciate them. Dash visitors are encouraged to learn more and gain a deeper understanding of this place. Okay, so over here, it's important to appreciate them. Dash visitors are encouraged to learn more. So you can see, it's important to appreciate, and this is the outcome. Outcome is here, encouraged to learn more. And this is the fact of the matter, right? So to connect these two together, we'll need a conjunction. And the conjunction here would be so. Okay. They are asked to walk around the rock, which is sacred to the Anangu, dash of climbing it. So you can see climbing and walking, these two are different options that you can do. But the walking around the rock is preferred. So we will use the word instead to show these two options and how one is better than the other. Okay. The rock is said to be spiritually significant. Thus, it has been acknowledged as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. There were hundreds of thousands of visitors who scaled the rock each year. So you can see, in the previous paragraph, it talks about how they need to walk around the rock. Then now, in the current paragraph, hundreds of thousands climb the rock. Scaled here means they climb. So there's some kind of contrast. The Australian government tell you don't do this thing, but a lot of people still want to do it, right? So we will say there are nevertheless, because this is the only conjunction here that shows contrast. Okay, and when dash the express wishes of the traditional owners. So you can see that what they do, they skew the rock this year. This is in opposition to the rule. So it will be they went against B. Okay, here. So this is a preposition to show how they did not follow the rule. Dash it may seem less of a mountain, the rock has reportedly claimed 37 lives in recorded history. So you can see, less of a mountain, but they still can cause a lot of deaths. So there's also this contrast in between these two sentences. Now, why do we use though here, right? Although, D, and not nevertheless? It's because although is followed by your noun, which is the it, or rather your pronoun, as well as your verb here, seem. Okay, so let me just highlight these two important words that we take into consideration when choosing the conjunction. Okay, and with that, we'll come to the end of this segment. I'll just leave this here for a bit for everyone to take in the information before we move on to our next section. Okay, I'd just like to go through the previous synthesis and transformation that we didn't have time to go through earlier first, before we look at other sections of our Nanyang paper. Okay, so let's take a look at this synthesis and transformation now. Let's give it a bit of time to load. Okay, John did not give up. He persevered to complete his revision. So you can see that there are two options. Option number one is give up. Option number two is finish the revision. So when you have the word instead of, you're trying to show how option number two is better. Okay, that's the main aim. So how do you achieve this? You will talk about option number one first. Then share how option number two is better. So it will be instead of giving up, comma, John persevered to complete his revision. Okay. Now look at number 67, the direct to indirect speech question. Do you know the ending to the mystery story? Tessa asked her father. Now, when I encounter these kind of questions, I like to first edit it on my question paper before I write my final answer. So it will be whether he had known the ending to that mystery story. Okay, once we are done with this editing, we will take a look at how to rewrite the sentence. The first thing I observe is there's a question mark. So it will need to start with whether or if. Okay? And it will be whether or if he had known the ending to that mystery story. Okay? Now, some of you may be asking, why suddenly from do you know become had known? Well, it's simple. We need to draw a timeline. Present, past, and past perfect. So it'll be know, knew, had known. Okay? Now, you need to look at the sentence in its entirety. Do you know the ending of this mystery story? And you see, Tessa asked her father. So this here is in past tense. Okay, hello, is Izen or Izen? Yeah, hello. Okay, so back to our question. Tessa asked her father, so it's past tense already. So from the past tense, I'll move back one time period to past perfect. Once I have established that I'm looking at past perfect, I'll look at the corresponding verb, which is had known. Therefore, my answer would be here, had known. Okay? Yeah. Tessa asked her father if he had known the ending to that mystery story. Yep, very good, Ethan. Okay, now look at number 68. The dog scampered away when it saw its owner enter the room. So you can see that there are two different actions. The dog scampered away, owner entered the room. So you need to ask yourself, which one took place first? The owner need to enter the room first, and almost immediately after that, the dog ran away or scampered away, right? So when you have the word upon, the first action will be at the back, and the second action will be at the start. So it will be the dog scampered away upon seeing its owner enter the room. Okay. Now let's take a look at question 69. James questioned whether Tom was sincere. So now what is happening is you're trying to change the word form of sincere. Sincere here is an adjective. You're trying to describe Tom. But now in our answer here, we're not looking at describing Tom. We're looking at the events that led to people to conclude that he was sincere. Right? So it will be Tom's sincerity. Okay? Was questioned by James. Okay. Yeah, very good, Ethan. Now look at number 70. Mother stormed out of the house. She was exasperated. So the word exasperated here is a verb. It's an action word. But now what is happening is you're trying to describe the manner in which mother stormed out. So it's an adjective, right? So it'll be mother stormed out of the house in exasperation. Okay. Now we are done with this. We'll go back to our Nanyang paper. And we'll look at our synthesis and transformation as well. Okay. Now look at 66. Father was reading the newspapers. It was blown away by a strong gust of wind. So this is an active to passive voice kind of thing. Right? Or rather, it should be the other way around. From passive here to active. Now also there's a it. So the it here refers to the newspapers. So the answer will be a strong gust of wind blew away the newspapers father was reading. Okay. Just take note, when we change from passive to active, we will move forward by one time period. That's why very good, Ethan. That's why we will be as such. Now let's take a look at number 67. The room was stuffy because the ventilation was poor. So you can see that this is the reason, this is the outcome. So it will be owing to the poor ventilation. The room was stuffy. Okay. Very straightforward question. Now look at 68. Mark insisted on going to the playground. It was snowing heavily. So we are saying that this is a factor that prevented Mark from going to the playground. But Mark was very insistent. So we will always put the factor first. So it will be no matter how heavily it was snowing, Mark insisted on going to the playground. Okay. Okay, very good, Ethan. Your previous answer was correct. Now let's take a look at number 69. Tom is the most responsible student in class. So basically, you are saying that he is number one when it comes to responsibility. Therefore, no other student in class is as responsible as Tom. Okay, This is a rather straightforward question, but I just want everyone to take note. No other here means zero. Therefore, we will consider this a singular subject. That's why it is. Okay. Now let's move on to the last question. Unfortunately, he was ill prepared for the role of the main character. So you can see, unfortunately here is basically an adverb to describe how something, isn't really good. So we would now want to describe it. Adverb here just shows the manner in which something is being done. But now what is happening is we want to describe using an adjective. So it will be, it was unfortunate that he was ill prepared for the role of the main character. Okay. Let's leave the answers here for a bit for everyone to take in the information before we move on further to our next section. Okay, are there any more questions? You're unfortunate that he was ill prepared for the role as the main character. Yeah, very good, Ethan. Yep. Are there any more questions or any more answers? If not, thank you everybody for joining me this evening on our Writers at Work TikTok session. I'm teacher Nathan, and if you'd like to learn our P6 English paper 2 content with me, do join me on our Sunday lessons. We start at 3 and we'll end by 6:15 p.m. Okay. Thank you so much for your participating, Ethan and a few others. Yep. If you like to watch more related content, you can go to our YouTube page. If not, you also can take a look at our schedule on the Instagram page as well for next week's TikTok's sessions. If not, I'll see everybody soon. And thank you. Bye bye.